Baby, I need some saving. Won't you save me? I'm clinging by a thread, climbing a cliff. If you dare me to jump, boy, you just might miss this. I'm climbing a mountain and I'm trying to conquer it, but it's not helpful when everyone else is in on me. Save my life, it matters. Save black lives, they ain't matter. Save my life, it ain't matter. I'm clinging to a thread. I'm balancing a cliff. If I jump, boy, I hope it would be.
Good evening and welcome to Say Brother. Tonight we will present a special evening entitled Distortions of Black Life. We have chosen the adjective distortions to clearly identify the continual injustices that have been imposed upon the African American for a period of 4 centuries. My guest, Ms. Brenda Verna, historian and media specialist, will give us some insight on what we need to know and how to evaluate the degrading practices that have existed for so long. Welcome to Say Brother, Ms. Verna.
Thank you.
The music of U.B. Blake was enlightening. However, I don't know if I can say that about some of those pictures that we were looking at.
Okay.
I wonder if you can give us some insight as to the tar baby and some of the other pictures we were looking at and explain to us what we were seeing.
Well, actually, for the most part, the majority of them, with the exception of the first card, which was the tar baby type effect, was a greeting card, and the last one was of the African couple was a postcard. But all of the others in between were what we call trade cards. These were cards that were used as a form of advertisement before and during early newspaper advertisements, and before there was mass media advertisement. That men on medicine show bandwagons used to go around, advertise the product, and hand out these cards.
Mm-hmm.
And the cards were a good way of advertising the product, but also advertising a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that way of life was denigration of African Americans.
And they found that degrading African Americans helped them in terms of the market.
Yes, these were allegedly humorous.
I see.
But very serious themes and oppression were carried out, as you could see in some of those. There were other mythical themes that were carried out too, along with them, particularly the one where you see the man washing the African's face with soap, and he allegedly washes the color off, and half his face is white and half his face is black. The implication is that the color comes off, and the other one is that the soap is so good it washes the dirt off of a black person's face. So you can see that many things in effect at once.
How long have these particular cards been into use, and when did they stop circulating around?
Well, trade cards, for the most part, stopped circulation about the turn of the century.
When did they come into existence?
Well, they came into existence in the mid-19th century, around the 1850s, early as the 1840s.
And how did they come about? Or
Well,
who brought them about?
It was a combination of things, I believe. The advent of the abolitionist movement and the influx of the Irish into the South as the last white citizen to be introduced into the South. He came in with little or no skills. And one of the means that he established himself within the community as a viable citizen in the community was to take away trades that were generally handled by Africans until that point, such as blacksmiths, carpentry, all of the crafts that were generally done, painters and all of that type, were done by Africans until, these last immigrants came in, until the second wave came in after the turn of the century. And in order to dislodge these Africans from their jobs, they had to use harsh social denigration of Africans to establish themselves as superior.
Well, in using them for advertising, I don't see how that would discourage using an African American. And I want to talk to you about that phrase that you constantly use, African American. I don't see how that would discourage having them continue in their particular trade.
Well, the whole area is to be treated lightly, with something of humor. The introduction of the subject as humorous means that it's not to be taken heavily, seriously. Problems are not associated in our popular advertisement with Africans. It's only the problems that they may get into for lack of intellectual ability. As you can see in some of those trade cards, they call them in trouble, being knocked off a ladder while picking some apples. It's always while carrying out some domestic chore. That was a way of stigmatizing, as you could possibly see, the role of the African within the society. It's always lower domestic, carrying out some productive domestic chore, or as a source of amusement.
Maybe you can clearly identify and explain some of the specific photographs that we were looking at. I saw a gentleman, black cartoon figure on top of a corn cob. What was that supposed to be symbolic of?
That was one of the popular phrases that came into being around the 1850s, referring to black people as coons.
I see.
The name of that car was A New Coon in Town. And you could see that this black man dressed in a corn cob, which could be associated with a scarecrow, which is also a dehumanizing association. And then the association with a lowercase animal, such as a raccoon. The raccoons were dancing, as you can see in the background, welcoming this new coon in town. As you can see, it's all dehumanizing, socially denigrating, and it implies intellectual inferiority. And over and above all of that, it says that this African is a lowercase animal.
How should we view such materials as this? Now, nowadays, we don't have the chance, really, unless we go about looking for it, to see that kind of materials. It's hidden or it's been destroyed. Those of us like yourself who have had an opportunity to go out and research and find it, collect it, and take care of it, and we're given an opportunity to look at it now, how should we view this? What can we learn from this?
I see it as a source of understanding where the mythical attitudes about African Americans in the larger society were started, and also primarily as a source for how our attitudes were formed. See, I remember when I was a child, and I remember hearing white kids make jokes about us and watermelons, and feeling, ashamed and inferior. When I first saw one of these cards, I knew they existed.
Was this in the South that you were talking about?
Oh, no, I lived in Chicago.
So this happened in the North as well?
Oh, of course, it's international. Because some of the pieces I have of these children sitting on fences eating watermelons or fighting each other over a piece of watermelon come from Germany. So you can see that, it's a Western world type attitude, not exclusively confined to the United States. But as I was saying, I believe that these are true and primary sources at which we can understand where some of our attitudes within the culture, within the culture, have been derived. You know, of course, we don't talk about it too often, but we have color problems. You know, people preferring people of a lighter skin color, and you can see that we have been made to feel ashamed of our skin color. Therefore, associating with the oppressor, and you can see where this man has washed the color off of in one of those cards, washed the color off of his face, which is a source of shame for young children, or that tar baby effect.
That has been the fact in the past. However, do you feel that the African American society really views themselves now in terms of dimension or grades of color?
Yeah.
Based on that, you still feel that exists?
I think it still exists. I think we've set up a social code whereby we don't talk about it. But if you look at the trends among, say, for instance, middle-class America and professional America, the preference has gone underground. When I was a child, I would hear it openly. You know, we would hear all kinds of statements about what we want our children to look like.
Sure. But now,
light skin,
right, curly hair,
right,
pointed nose,
yes, even to the point of don't bring no, you know, dark or other kind of deriding person into my house. I don't want that. But I believe it's gone underground, and I found that it's important to be able to document firsthand where these kinds of feelings have come from, and in order that we can rid not only our culture, but the dominant culture of these kinds of pervasive attitudes that exist, and they stubbornly go underground. You know, we see them supported. The concept of mammy is supported over and over again in popular television. It even goes to the word. You know, it goes from the source of the overt manifestation of the stereotype to the subtle, just the word. For instance, we can see constantly in all of these old pieces that people are in rags and tattered clothing, which is not necessarily true of the time, given, you know, where you may have been in your situation. But today, the word welfare is stigmatized to Black people. There are many, many hookups that go back hundreds of years that have turned into simply words that evoke the image.
Do you feel that words or terminology plays an important aspect in terms of degrading or dehumanizing African Americans?
Surely.
How so?
What we call ourselves and what we see ourselves as are very important things. The language of English can be twisted and perverted in such a way in order that the initial meaning that a group chooses or adopts a word can be changed to turn back on that group, particularly the word Black. In the media, in the 60s, I saw the use of the word Black as a way of people identifying themselves primarily, saying that we're not Negroes, as you call us, or coloreds, or coons, or any of that other stuff. We're Black like you're white. But in the interim, the word has been changed over the past 10 years. It's been changed to have a deriding effect, particularly now.
You feel that now?
Right. In the media, they call us the Blacks.
Yes.
They also say a Black instead of a Black man or a Black woman. During this time of Jimmy Carter's inauguration into the White House and his appointment of a cabinet and other subservient offices, they constantly refer to in the New York Times or on television or wherever, a Black has been appointed. Whereas we, at the same time, the feminist movement has had an effect upon the language, whereas a white woman becomes a white person, we have lost person status. We're no longer a Black male or a Black woman.
Do you think that's something that's consciously done? We refer to ourselves as Blacks.
Well, I don't think that we are aware of the initial change in the use of the word and we pick up on the use of the language because we're all media people. All Americans generally, 95% of Americans, 95% or 97% of Americans' homes are saturated with television, to say the least, not to mention the other supporting media. And they are the primary source of terminology in the language. It has a subtle, even insidious effect upon us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know until it's been turned upon us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that we intend to call ourselves a black. A black means anything, a black desk, a black chair, a black shoe.
Mm-hmm.
We are people,
Mm-hmm.
and we must constantly move to head off these kinds of subtle changes that affront us as people.
So you're saying that the African American should be one of the first people to take the step in changing the terminology
Right.
and how
And
we
I
refer
believe
to
that we should
ourselves.
also be aware that we as people have to identify ourselves as a world community.
Mm-hmm.
And American citizens come from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
yet they maintain their identity with their land of origin.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese people are called Chinese Americans, Italian Americans, so on and so forth. There is no reason for the term Africa or African to be diverted into Afro. You know, in respect for the land of our origins, we can call ourselves just what other people call it.
How do you feel that came about, Afro?
I believe that at about the turn of the century, when some black businessmen in New York City founded a realty company, and they were supported by Booker T. Washington, Tuskegee Machine. They were encouraged and supported in part by finance. I understand there's a story that Booker T. Washington went to Switzerland, and he was one of the few Africans who was seen in Switzerland. I have some doubts as to the origins of this, but at any rate, they referred to his hair, as being different, wiry type hair, and shortened the term from African to Afro. And he saw this as a badge of honor, and he encouraged people to call themselves Afro-American or Afro. And as a result, this realty company, the Afro-American Realty Company, was founded, which ultimately founded Harlem. But a distortion, nevertheless, is a distortion. And in a time when we are more or less concerned about our roots, and Alex Haley has done a great spiritual service for the community, not only intracultural, but the entire American community. We must recognize the use of the language and how it's subtly been turned against us.
You are known to be a lecturer throughout the state of Massachusetts and maybe even further, for all I know. What have you found the response to be upon delivering lectures such as this?
Overwhelmingly positive.
Who is your audience? Are they African Americans, or are they?
I am generally concentrated in the area of women, and I have lectures that cover. I do a main lecture that's on women, stereotyping of women, and then one on stereotyped African American culture in film and television. And I take the antiques and track them through not only popular forms of advertisement, but into old movies, how they were modified, and onto the television and into the word.
You have some visuals with us that we should be able to take a look at very shortly that would show us women and children at another era, unlike what we saw at the top of the show. Maybe shortly we can take a quick look at that. But go ahead, continue telling me how you found the response to.
Well, most of the time,
your lectures.
People do not, they're shocked. They're shocked at the overt racism in these pieces that were as popular in America as any other greeting cards you may find in the store now. They're shocked at the level of debasement to every faction of the African American community, from children to old people. No member of the community was left to normal thought patterns by the dominant society.
I think we have an opportunity to take a look at some of those slides I was speaking of earlier.
Yes.
Maybe you can refer to some. We're looking at what looks like to be a young child who's dressed up in
this
just
is a
regular
dress from 1898. As you can see, when you look at the fantasy and the myth of the society, the myth systems, as opposed to reality, you can see that these children are real people.
Okay, what we have a young baby here looks very well off. Well,
Oh yeah.
who are we looking at? Do you know who it is, and where did you collect this from?
I got this, found this family album from 3 generations of doctors from Averill, Massachusetts.
And these are African Americans right here in the state.
Right. New Englanders who had always been New Englanders, were from a long line of New Englanders. Here is this other, this is also a child from the same family. You can see it's a beautiful baby. That's the same child as a young teenager.
Now, she looks like she's very wealthy, and maybe after we've looked at this, we can stop for a minute and just talk about this. She looks like she's very wealthy. Is she?
Yes.
She is wealthy. Okay. Now, the average collection, your collection, the average person within that collection, does it appear to be that the people who are dressed in what appears to be silk and lace and even polished cottons, are they normally wealthy, or are they just the average to do?
No, for the most part, as you can see, average people wore good clothes. There was no such thing as polyester then. There was no such thing as, a Dacron. People either wore 100%, whatever it was, or not. Now, in this case of this picture, this child with the in her coming out garb, you can see opulence. That's apparent opulence. But in most of the other pictures, you will see them just well dressed.
Okay, so in all of the pictures that we saw at the beginning of this discussion were just totally taken, those people were taken out of context. Those that were not obviously cartoons were totally taken out of context in terms of what their natural habitat would be, the clothing, etc.
We would imagine that people in rural settings, as opposed to any people, all and any people in rural settings, would dress differently than people in urban settings.
Okay. And we can take a look at some more of those when we have a minute. While they're doing that, we can go ahead and talk. I'd like to get into, how did you get into this collecting anyway?
Well, when I was in school in Ithaca, New York, I was teaching a course on the history of Black and white women since slavery. And while teaching that course, we were doing slave narratives. And it was difficult for me to impress upon the white students in my class that there was a difference between the mythological system that was set up to entrap the image of Africans in this country and the reality of the situation given then and now. And I've always been an avid collector of antiques. I've always gone to garage sales. And one Saturday morning, I was out at a garage sale and I found a trade card with a mammy stereotype on it, a mammy image on it. And I said, here is perfectly. It was from 1855. And I said, here's a perfect example of what it was really degrading. The mammy image was hardly human compared to the white woman that she was standing next to.
Let me interrupt you, and let's take a look at what we have here. This child, I can't tell. The child looks maybe like mulatto, number one. Number two, looks, again, very wealthy. To explain to me what status and who is this child?
Well, this is an average child. She is obviously not necessarily originally from mixed origins. Maybe her parents are from mixed origins. But you can see that she's just an average child, dressed like an average child throughout our history here in an urban environment. This picture came from Boston. I found it in the Boston area. Now, this child, as you can see, as opposed to the other child, has not only a dress that implies higher up income bracket, but you can see that her stance and her pose and her demeanor implies a sense of security. And this child is also a member of that family from Averill, the 3 generations of doctors from Averill. This girl is one of my favorite photos. Isn't she pretty?
She is beautiful. Who is she? Do you know?
I don't know specifically. I found a book that was from a school in Cambridge, that was a boarding school for Black children. Most of them came from out of state. Many of them came from the South, and many of them were from mixed unions. And they sent the children out of state to come to this school, which was a refined school, gave them upper crust education and social contacts.
Who is this?
This woman is the housekeeper from that family
She
in
doesn't look
April.
like a housekeeper.
No, she is, you would probably call her a domestic engineer. She controlled the house.
Mm-hmm.
She took care of everything in the family, and you can see that she and her family were well taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
This is another girl. It's another one of my favorite photos.
Mm-hmm.
She is
Who
so
is she?
pretty. She's a member of that school that I mentioned in Cambridge.
I see.
And you can see that
What
those
was the
girls,
name of that school? Do you have any idea?
No, I have an awful lot of stuff that we're trying to get. This girl is also from that school.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to get grant money to
Uh-huh.
research all of the pieces that we have.
And what do you intend to do with them?
My ultimate aim in a lot of my work is I would like to found an institute for the study of African American women in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for that institute to have a museum,
Mm-hmm.
and a library and a school of performing arts and research departments in order that we can be able to carry on our own research.
How long have you been collecting these materials? And if anyone wanted to locate you or inform you of some materials that they might have to sell or give to you, how would they do that?
Well, they could call me
Mm-hmm.
at 547-3295
Mm-hmm.
or 442-4856.
Mm-hmm.
If they're interested in the lecture series, they can call me at the same number and inquire
Mm-hmm.
about the different lecture series that we offer.
Okay. Would you encourage other African Americans to try to go out and look around and collect these kinds of materials?
I would encourage people to start right within their families.
Mm.
I would encourage them to go into the trunks
Mm-hmm.
and bring out the pictures
Mm-hmm.
and into the paper bags. And I know they're in paper bags because that's where I had to find things in my
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
And to put these photographs
Mm-hmm.
in a safe and congenial place for their preservation, and also to collect anything that looks old and good. Rely
Mm-hmm.
on your taste, your own personal taste. If you have good taste, you will collect good things.
Okay. We've run out of time, but I have really been
Sorry.
enlightened by this whole half hour, and I'm sure a viewing audience has as well. I hope that you've learned something and that you do contact Ms. Brenda Verna at the numbers that we gave you. Thank you for watching Say Brother, and good night.